Your traditions are keeping you broke, and the more you try to preserve them, the more you're digging yourself into a hole that you will never get out of. Hello, my name is Ida, and I'm an accountant, financial coach, and I help people with financial education. I asked ChatGPT, what are traditions and how do this affect our relationship with money, personal finances, and debt? And here's what Chat said. Traditions generally refer to customs, beliefs, and practices that are passed down from generation to generation within a cultural community. These can include rituals, celebrations, values, and behaviors that are considered important and are often repeated over time. Traditions can have significant impact on various aspects of life, including personal finances and our relationship with money and debt. And now here's what it goes on to say. Number one, your spending habits, right? Many traditions involve spending money, whether it's buying gifts for holidays, hosting parties, or participating in cultural ceremonies. These expenses can influence our spending habits and financial choices. For example, if a tradition involves elaborate gift giving, individuals may feel pressured to spend beyond their means, leading to financial strain. Is that you? Let's dive into that. Spending habits, right? We're talking about holidays. It's almost Christmas. Every Christmas, what is the thing that everybody is pressured by? Your kids start talking about gifts. You're thinking about what gifts you're going to give to every single person. That's the reason why at Christmas, people are so financially stressed that come January, a lot of people say January is the longest month of all. It's not because January is long. It's just because you were so much deeper in debt because of all the traditions of December that by the time January comes along, you barely have enough money to make ends meet for the month, and then it feels like a very long month because of the traditions you're trying to preserve for Christmas. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying be aware of it. So we're talking about the traditions of spending money for gift buying on holidays, right? We're talking about hosting parties. We're talking about participating in cultural ceremonies. These all influence your spending habit. Okay, the second one that ChatGPT says is saving and budgeting. Let's hear what it says. Some traditions emphasize the importance of saving money for specific events or future needs. For instance, saving for a wedding, a family vacation, or a religious pilgrimage might be a traditional practice. These traditions can encourage responsible financial behavior and effective budgeting if you do it right. I want to pick on the one of saving for a wedding, for example. Everybody wants to do an elaborate wedding. The question is, why? Is it because weddings are usually elaborate, or is it because you want it? Take me, for example. I got married in the middle of COVID. Maybe COVID saved me. Maybe I was meant to be cheap. I don't know. But it was a bride and groom focused wedding. That means we're not thinking about how much we're going to spend on everybody else coming to enjoy at the party. It was more about the intimacy of the event itself, the ceremony of the event itself. But for a lot of people, because of the pressures of the society or whatever pressures you've chosen to put on yourself, you go out there to make a very elaborate wedding that you really cannot afford. If it's done right, you set yourself a budget. This is how much I want to spend for my wedding. And then you start to save for it on a monthly basis. Knowing that, let's say you're going to do a wedding that's going to cost you, on the cheap side, $12,000. That means you need to save $1,000 a month for the next 12 months. If you're going to do a wedding that's going to cost you $24,000 and you're getting married in 1 year, that means you got to set aside $2,000 a month in order to be able to afford that wedding that's going to cost you $24,000. $2,000 aside a month for 12 months. If your wedding is going to cost you $36,000, that means you have to set aside $3,000 a month for the next 12 months in order to get married in 12 months and spend $36,000 on that wedding. If you think about it in that way, then planning for your wedding becomes an intentional thing. It's not just something that all of a sudden it's like, oh, I want that also for my wedding. I want that. And then you're going way above your means in order to preserve a tradition of spending, of making an elaborate wedding without actually thinking like, what do I want? What do I want? A lot of brides go to the extent of creating these elaborate weddings because they're trying to keep up with something, whatever they're trying to keep up with. Okay, number 3 thing that ChatGPT said is debt accumulation. On the other hand, certain traditions may contribute to the accumulation of debt. For instance, weddings and other major life events come often at a significant expense, and some individuals may choose to take on debt to fund these celebrations. This can impact long-term financial well-being if not managed carefully. That's exactly what I talked about. I've heard of people who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their wedding. Yes, their wedding became the talk of the town. Everybody was talking about their wedding for months on end. And some of those weddings didn't even last. Because some of those couples I've heard, I can't personally say, but I've heard a lot of them, well, there's this couple that spent like $125,000 for their wedding, and they got divorced within the year. What happens to that debt? Like, was it worth it? What was the point of that wedding when there's no marriage? Like, I'm no marriage counselor. You guys can go figure that out for yourself. I'm talking about the money side of it. Why would you go and spend that kind of money on a wedding? Like, seriously. Number 4, cultural norms. Cultural traditions can influence societal norms around money and debt. In some cultures, taking on debt may be more socially acceptable, while in others, it may be frowned upon. These cultural norms can shape an individual's attitudes and behavior towards borrowing and managing financial obligations. Now, if you're watching this, you definitely have a personal mindset around money. You definitely have a personal philosophy of money. How did you grow up around money? What were the conversations that people around you said when it came to money? Did you grow up in a household where you would always hear, we can't afford that? Or did you grow up in a household where it was like, okay, how can we afford that? It's the same words, but it's a different question. We cannot afford that. Shuts down the conversation. It tells you, hey, we don't have it, period. But how can you afford that? Opens up your mind. It's like, what can I do to be able to get this thing that I want to get? And so when I'm teaching people, for me, it's all about identifying what your relationship is with money, why you spend money the way that you do. Is it based on the things that you grew up hearing? Is it based on the things that people around you are doing? Or is it just based on, like, what's your relationship with money like? Why do you spend money the way that you do? And if you can identify why you spend money the way that you do, you can consciously make a decision of how you want to spend money. And so think about how the cultural norms, the traditions, and how those things influence the way that you handle money. Some traditions are very okay with borrowing, and some really frown upon that. Some people will tell you live below your means, and some people would say, well, some don't even care. Some just, as long as you can afford, quote unquote, as long as you have a credit card that you can go and swipe and use the money, they're okay with it. I remember when I moved over here to North America, I moved over to Canada in 2010 as a newcomer, and the people that I came and I was around, not the people hosting me, but just like the environment in general, they had this very laissez-faire attitude around credit cards. It was more treated like an emergency fund. And so the advice that I used to get from people was, oh, if you're getting all these credit card offers, just accept them, because it means that the bank thinks you're credit worthy and the bank thinks you're, I don't know, all of those things. Is like, accept it because you never know when you're going to need an emergency fund. My question is, how would you think that is your money? It's not yours. A credit card is meant to be there for convenience, for you to be able to make some purchases that otherwise would be very complicated to do. For example, you want to buy something on Amazon and you can't because there's no place where you can physically go and give the money to somebody for them to give you the things. That card becomes a convenient tool that you can use to make such a purchase. You want to pay something online, it just makes it easier for you to use the money or for you to process transactions, instead of thinking of it in terms of like, oh, this is my emergency fund. No. I mean, if worst case scenario, yeah, use it, but definitely have a plan on how you're going to pay it back. But don't make it the habit, don't make it the norm for you to go ahead and use that, because it's not your money. It's the bank's money, and you're paying an interest for using it when you don't pay off your balance on a monthly, like when you don't pay off the complete amount of your credit card on a monthly basis, then you start to pay interest and all of those other fees that don't make sense. More about credit cards in a different video. I get so passionate when I start talking about credit cards. But anyway, the next thing that ChatGPT said, financial goals and values. Here's what it says. Traditions often reflect underlying values and priorities. Understanding these values can influence financial goals and decisions. For example, if a tradition places a strong emphasis on home ownership or education, individuals may prioritize saving for a home or funding education over other financial goals. Yeah, where I come from, my background, born and raised in Africa, Cameroon, education is one of those things that is highly, highly, highly valued. And it's okay in our traditions to go and borrow money to send your kids to school. Having that mindset and like entrepreneurship is not really a thing because everybody expects their child to either be like a doctor, a lawyer. Those are the top things: doctor, lawyer, accountant, banker, one of those things, right? It's more like you have to go to school to go and do these things, and people go to extremes to make sure that their kids go to those particular things. And so if you come from that culture where it really places a strong emphasis on education, for example, you don't think twice about going to borrow $400,000 to go to school. That's what I see people doing all over North America. There are people who owe mortgage equivalents as student loans. Like, seriously? If it's something that you want, I get it. But if it's something you're doing because that's the norm, that's the tradition, or that's what's expected by society, you got to really rethink why you do certain things. Home ownership is another one. One of the people I listen to is Ramit Sethi, and he hasn't bought a home and he's financially free, but he's never bought a home. Or he doesn't own a home. I don't know if he's ever bought a home, but I know he doesn't own a home right now because that's what he says. And a lot of people are going to tell you, you have to own a home. Home ownership is the path to wealth. And listen up, there's no one path to wealth. You don't have to own a home. Home ownership is not a must for everybody. For some people, it's renting that makes sense. But if you've never ever looked at your personal situation to see what it is that actually makes sense for you, then you're going to do things because everybody else is doing exactly that. And so this video is about just creating that awareness for you to realize that there are certain traditions that cause you or that influence you to do things in a certain way without actually stopping to think and ask yourself, like, what is it that I want to do? Am I doing this because I want to do it, or am I doing it because other people around me are doing it? Let's drink some water. We're back. Number 6 from ChatGPT, generational impact. Traditions are often passed down through generations, and financial habits can be inherited along with them. Positive financial traditions such as responsible saving and investing can contribute to financial stability across generations. Conversely, negative traditions like a reliance on credit without proper financial planning can perpetuate financial challenges. Let's go deeper into this one of generational impact. We've all heard talk about building generational wealth. If you're watching this video, you're very likely in North America. So I'm going to focus more on this side. We've seen families create generational wealth. And that seems to only be among people of certain cultural or traditional origin. When you look at people who are from the African descent, it happens as well that you see a lot of people building generational wealth, but it's not something that is so ingrained in the fabric of it. And I think this generation of people, we are the ones who are going to make that impact and create the change that's needed and start to build that generational wealth for the people that come after us. When you ask people simple questions like, do you have insurance? Some people say, yes, I do. Some people say, no, I don't. Tell me about it. But there is the other group of people who say, I didn't have anything. Why am I getting insurance? When I die, I'm going to be buried. The people that are after me are going to take care of themselves. If you have people that depend on you financially, if you have a family, if you have people that depend on you financially, you need life insurance. Because when your income is not there, once you are gone, how are the people that depend on you financially, how are they going to continue to maintain the kind of lifestyle that you had set up for them? God forbid you're a parent right now and you pass away and your kids are all young. What happens to them? They're going to go into the system. If there's no source of finances to continue to support them, what happens to them? Think about the people that come after you. Insurance is just one of those things. Now, when you think about how we grew up or what we grew up seeing, we grew up seeing the traditions such that your parents take care of you when you're little, and when they go older, they depend on you financially. Our parents have done what they could do with what they had. But in this day and age, we are taking care of our parents because they never set up that financial stability for themselves. But if we look at what we're doing for our kids, or what we're doing for ourselves, are we putting things in place such that down the road, we will not be depending on our kids to take care of us the same way that our parents are depending on us to take care of them? Are we thinking about that? Or are we just stuck in the mindset of, oh, this is tradition, this is how it always happens, the kids are always going to take care of the parents? And I'm sure I'm opening myself up to a lot of debate on this, I'm opening myself up to a lot of criticism on this, but I want to call people out on this. What are you planning for your financial future? How are you making sure that you're going to be okay financially in the future, and you're not going to be depending on your kids financially in the future? For most of us, we moved over to North America. For most of us, our parents are still back home in Africa. So if you're sending them, let's say, $500 a month on the high side, that's more than enough to take care of them. If you're sending them $100, $200, $300 a month, that's more than enough to take care of them back home. Let's flip that over. In the future, you're here, right? You're right here in North America. You are creating your life here, and you're not planning for your future. So let me just fast forward this to when you're much older. Is your intention to stay here, or is your intention to go back home? If your intention is to stay here, let's say your kids down the road even give you, let's take it up, $1,000. Let's say your kids give you $1,000 a month. Is that going to be enough to take care of even just your rent? If you haven't finished paying off your house, you'll be renting, right? If you're renting, you think $1,000 is going to be enough to even pay your rent? Not to talk of your groceries, not to talk of any of your other bills. You think the tradition of, oh, our kids are going to take care of us, or we are taking care of our parents, meaning our kids are going to take care of us, you think that's going to work for you? You think so? Really? If that's what you're thinking, then you're in a different world. You're sleeping, you're dreaming. This is a wake-up call for you, okay? Don't let traditions, don't let the norms, don't let the things that have always happened be what this determines for you how you are handling yourself going forward. If this is the first time you ever heard somebody talk about it, I want you to stop and think and ask yourself, like, what am I doing? What's my plan for the future? How are my habits right now setting me up for success in the future? I'm not saying don't live a life right now. Enjoy. You work hard. Enjoy it. But in enjoying it, remember your future. Don't put the burden on your kids, the same burdens that we're living with right now. And I choose the word burden. I pick the word burden don't dwell on that word. But we all know. I speak to newcomers, I speak to immigrants almost on a daily basis. I spoke to a lady not too long ago who bought her house in the middle of COVID. Yes, the interest rates were great, but the house prices were off the charts. That person pays about double of what I pay on my mortgage. Yes, we bought a house a long time ago. But what I'm saying is that people are stressed financially. Your income hasn't increased significantly, but your expenses have more than doubled. The amount you were paying for a mortgage for a house that was bought 20 years ago is way different from what you're paying right now. A house that was bought 15 years ago, 10 years ago, let's only talk 10 years ago. A house that was bought 10 years ago, if you were paying $1,500 for that house, a person who has a mortgage right now is probably paying $3,500 for that same mortgage. That's more than double the expenses. And that's just one aspect of the things. You have your mortgage, you have your property taxes, school taxes, you have groceries, you have your utilities. On a similar income like you had not too long ago. Added to that, you have to take care of other people. You got to take care of your parents. You got to take care of other siblings who are not here. That is stressful, and that's what I'm talking about. And so if you don't consciously plan your life right now to be able to take care of yourself right now and in the future, I see a lot of people going to refinance and pull money out of their houses to go and pay off certain other debt. Okay, that's taken care of. But let's think about the house. If you have a house and you refinance and you re-up the amount of your mortgage, whatever, you're extending the amount of time that you're going to be paying the mortgage for. You're adding 25 years to it. Let's say you're 40 years old right now, right? You're 40, you just refinance and took the money out, so your mortgage is back to a 25-year mortgage. So you're 40. In 25 years, you're going to be 65. You're technically going to be retiring at that time. If you continue to pay the mortgage as is, it means you're going to be done by the time you're 65. Bravo, good for you. But hopefully you've been setting money aside also on a monthly basis, which you're investing into something that's going to start paying you once you get into that retirement, or you have another plan. Unless if your plan is that your kids are going to take care of you, which I'm hoping that's not the case, because we want to break that. We want to break that generational thing that we've been doing. And we want to flip it such that we are building generational wealth. We are creating a situation where our kids are not going to inherit debt from us, but they're actually going to inherit something to set them up financially to be better off. Or if you don't have anything to leave for your kids, at least please don't leave them dead. Take care of yourself. Take care of your finances. Set yourself up in such a way that you don't become a burden for the people around you. I started off this video talking about traditions. And of course, I threw this into ChatGPT and I asked it to give me a few points, what it thinks. I have what I think. And of course, I've told you what I think. But I'm going to go back to recap those points that it said. Number 1 is spending habits. Number 2 is saving and budgeting. Number 3 is debt accumulation. Number 4, cultural norms. Number 5, financial goals and values. Number 6, generational impact. So think about the impact that your financial habits are causing on you, and how we're normalizing things for other people to think that that's just the way it is. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's time, guys. It's time to make some changes in your life. Don't continue to do what you're doing with the hope that something is going to change in the future. Nothing is going to change until you change. If you love this video, check out the next one right here next to me.